Hi there, and welcome back to With Love Leisha. And if you're new around here, I'm Leisha, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to learn how to make these two-toned scrunchies, and I'll also show you what to do if you would like it to turn out a little bit more like this. So let's go ahead and see what we need. To crochet these two-tone scrunchies, you will need a couple different colors of yarn. Any yarn you want to use is fine. I'm using Caron's Simply Soft Tweeds in gray and a miscellaneous lavender colored yarn from my stash, and both my yarns are a medium weight, around a 3 or 4. You also need a crochet hook, and you would decide your hook size by first starting with the size listed on the back of your yarn packaging. See if you can comfortably yarn over and pull through the loop, holding both yarns together. So basically you're just seeing if you can comfortably crochet holding both yarns together. And for me, it took some effort to make sure my yarn doesn't snag on this hook and the yarns don't slip off the hook. So I moved up to a size J. So you can use what you're comfortable with. And then you need some hair ties or elastic bands. You want to make sure you have decent quality hair ties because we will be crocheting around them and you don't want them to snap on you, and we will be putting some strain on them as we crochet, so you want to make sure that your hair ties hold. And then you need some yarn scissors and a yarn needle or darning needle, and I have a great set that I got from Amazon of crochet hooks, the scissors, some yarn needles, and stitch markers. So I will link that in the description box for you, and you can go ahead and check that out. And that's it. So let's go ahead and get into our tutorial. Okay, so the first thing we need to do to make our scrunchies is attach our yarn to our hair tie. If you want to just tie it onto the hair tie, that's perfectly fine. I like to attach my yarn using a slip stitch. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a slip knot. And to make a slip knot, all you do is yarn over and stick your fingers into the loop and grab that longer piece of yarn. You want to make sure you're holding both your yarns together, and you want to try to line up your tails as best as possible. You want your tail ends pretty close together. They don't have to be perfect, but as close as you can get them would be good. Once you have your slip knot, place your loop on your hook and tighten it up. So you're just going to pull on the longer piece of yarn to get the loop closer to the hook. And then I'm going to slide my hair tie over my hook because I want it on my yarn between my hand and the hook. And now we're ready to start working around our hair tie. So I'm going to yarn over and pull through the loop, and I'm going to tighten. And that is attaching our yarn to the hair tie. Now, I understand that working with 2 strands of yarn can be pretty intimidating, but as you can see, I'm holding them the same way I would hold one single strand of yarn. So it's really no different than working with 1 strand of yarn. I'm not going to be doing anything crazy here. That being said, let's go ahead and get into our stitches. So we have our slip stitch here. Now we're going to work single crochets around this hair tie, and that single crochet is US terms. So these tails we want to work into our stitches as we go around so that we don't need to worry about them later on. We won't need to sew them in. So if you can, if it's not too bothersome for you and it doesn't get too confusing, just hold these tails with your hair tie as you are crocheting around. So I'm just holding them against the hair tie like that. I'm not doing anything extra. So just like you would hold onto the hair tie, just get those tails on there too. Now I'm going to insert the hook into the center of the hair tie, yarn over and pull up a loop, and yarn over and pull through both loops. Now when I say both loops, I mean both sets of loops. So since we are using 2 strands of yarn, these 2 strands are going to work as one unit. So this is going to count as 1 loop on my hook. So go ahead and place more single crochets, keep going. You go into the center of your hair tie, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. Insert, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. And if you need some more help with the single crochet, or if you're an absolute beginner, you can check out some helpful links I will put in the description box. If you want to practice a little bit with those links, practice the stitches and then come back here, you can totally do that. That's fine. So keep working around this hair tie, placing your single crochets. And as you can see, because I have these tails held on, the tails are getting worked into the stitches as I go around. So I'm going to finish going all the way around, and I will meet you back when you have reached your first stitch and covered the hair tie. Okay, I've almost made it all the way back around, and I just wanted to mention really quickly how I am holding my hook and my yarn. So my hands are relaxed. I have a firm grip on the hook and my yarn, but I'm not clenching onto them. My shoulders are not tense, but they're not loose either. So you just want to have a firm grip, but stay relaxed. You don't want to cause tension in your shoulders. And we will be working back into these stitches, so we don't want them to be too tight. We will be placing multiple stitches into them, so we don't want to have to force our hook into the stitches. So just keep them relaxed, not too tight, but not loose. Now, I've made it back to my first stitch, and we want to make sure that we're not going to have gaps as we crochet our scrunchie. So scoot your stitches over. Try to scoot them over, get them as close to each other as possible without stretching out your hair tie. We will be putting a bit of strain on the tie because we're going to be loading it up with more yarn and more stitches. So we don't want to stretch it out, tug on it, pull on it too hard, but just scoot your stitches over. Try to get them really nice and close to each other as I am here. So I'm just making sure that they sit really close together, but I'm not pulling on my hair tie too much. I'm not stretching it out. And then if you have a gap like I do, you want to crochet more stitches. So more single crochets to fill up that gap. So once you have done that and you're happy with the amount of stitches you have on your hair tie, you will be ready to join. I'm going to place 1 or 2 more stitches on here. I think I could do 1 more. There we go. And now I'm going to join. So find that first single crochet that we did. So these V's are what we are going to work into. So find the very first V. And this is my very first V. We want to insert our hook into that. Make sure you get all the strands of yarn on your hook. Remember, we do have more than 1 strand here, so we want to make sure that we get them all. You will have 2 strands in the front for the front leg of the V and 2 strands in the back for this back leg of the V. You can see it better if I pull up on it. So make sure you get all of them on your hook. And then pull up a loop. And pull through the loop that's on your hook. And then yarn over and pull through the loop. So now you've slip stitched to join your first and last stitch, and you've also chained 1. Now we're going to move on to round 2. So for round 2, we need a chain 2. We already have a chain 1, which we just did. Now we want to yarn over, pull through the loop, and that gives us a chain 2. And we're doing that because the double crochet stitch, which is the stitch we're going to be using now, is a taller stitch. So we need some height. And this chain 2 just gives us some height so we can begin our round. And that double crochet is in US terms. So here is where you decide how much ruffle to put on your scrunchie. If you want something that looks like this, you're going to put 2 stitches, meaning 2 double crochets, into each one of these stitches. And if you want something that looks like this, you're going to put 3 double crochets into each one of these stitches. So these are our single crochets. Now we're going to place double crochets into those single crochets. So yarn over and see this chain 2. Do you see this very first space just under that chain 2? That's where we're going. It's to the left of the chain 2. It's the first space. You want to yarn over and go into that space. And then yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over again. Pull through 2 loops. Remember, each of these sets is 1 loop. Yarn over and pull through another 2. So this chain 2 is going to count as our first double crochet. So we have 2 double crochets into this stitch right now. I want to place 3 double crochets in each stitch. I already have a couple of these, so I'm going to try to aim for something like this. You can put as many as you would like. More double crochets will give you a ruffly scrunchie, and less double crochets will give you a flatter, more subtle scrunchie. So I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to go back into that space that I just worked in. Yarn over again and pull up a loop. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Yarn over and pull through the next 2. That gives me my first 3 double crochets. Now I'm going to move on to the next stitch. Yarn over, insert, get that V over your hook. Make sure you get all the strands. You should have 4 strands on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over and pull through the next 2. Now we're going to go back into that same space 2 more times. So that's yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over and pull through the next 2. And that gives me my 3rd double crochet into that space. So that's really all we're doing all the way around. And when you've made it to the very first stitch, I will show you how to join. I have made it all the way back to my first stitch, which was our chain 2. I have this one last stitch left, and I just wanted to show you what it looks like when you have that last stitch left. So which is your last stitch? This is going to be your last stitch. This chain 2 and this space right under it, we're not going to go in there. That chain 2 plus these 2 double crochets, that's our first set of 3 stitches. So we're going to end right here in that stitch, that V, the last V right next to that chain 2. So remember, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through your first 2 sets of loops, which are your first 2 loops, yarn over and pull through your next 2 loops. And I'm doing 3 double crochets in each stitch, so I'm going to do 2 more. If you are doing only 2 double crochets in each stitch, you would only do 1 more. And that is my last stitch. So I am now ready to join. And to join, we would do what we did on the first round. So we're going to join into that V. So find your first actual double crochet, not your chain 2, but your actual double crochet. This is my first actual double crochet. And the top of that stitch is where we want to put our hook. So find the top of that stitch, and that also happens to be our first V. So let me show you here. This is our first V. So we want to go in there into that first V. And we're not yarning over, we're just going to insert. Make sure you get all 4 strands on your hook. 2 from the front leg of the V and 2 from the back leg of the V. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and then and pull straight through to the loop that's on your hook. Now you have joined your second round, and this is what my scrunchie looks like. Yours will look a little different based on the yarns that you used. And now we're ready to join, to knot off. So I'm going to place my fingers through that loop, and I'm going to grab this longer piece of yarn and pull through. And that longer piece of yarn, the yarn that we hold in this hand, that's called our working yarn. So if you hear someone say working yarn, now you know what they're talking about if you didn't already. So tighten that knot, make sure it's not going anywhere, and pull up your loop. And then grab your scissors. Give yourself some length here because we're going to sew in these ends. So you want to give yourself a good tail so that you have enough yarn to get on your needle and sew in. So I'm going to give myself about this much. And then I'm going to cut at the top of that loop, at the middle of that loop. And then to pull out, pull from your working yarn so that you are pulling the correct strands. And if that knot is loosened a little bit, then just tighten it. And as you can see, these tails from our start, because I worked them into my stitches, that's all that's left of them. They're all hidden in there. So you can just go ahead and cut that piece that's sticking out, the little extra. And now we're ready to sew these ends in. So get your needle. And we want to get these pieces of yarn into the eye. So an easy way to do that, so you're not struggling with the ends of your yarn, which will probably be fuzzy. Wrap your yarn over the needle and get it nice and snug. And then towards the eye of the needle, slide your yarn off. And then now try to get it into that eye. And that should go in fairly easily. And there you go. You want to make sure that you do choose a needle that you can fit both yarns into at the same time so that you don't have to sew them in separately. Now we're going to see which way the yarn lays best. So try to go the way that doesn't create a bump. If I go to the right, this is creating a bump here. So I'm going to go to the left. I feel that it lays better towards the left. Now I'm just going to work these tails into my stitches. So I'm going to go straight down right where that knot is I'm going straight down into that actual double crochet that I crocheted, and just gently weave into your stitch. You don't want to fray your yarn, so don't be too rough with it. And you do want to make sure that you can't see your needle from the front or the back, because if you can see the needle when you try to pull the yarn through, you'll see the yarn as well. So just slide the needle into the strands, right into the stitch. Go a little bit at a time so it's easy to pull the yarn through. And then gently pull down. Don't pull too hard, because if you yank the tails down too hard, you could end up causing a dent in the top of your scrunchie where your knot is. So just gently pull to get your tails down. And that looks good to me. I don't think that's super visible. There we go. And now once you've worked down, work either to the right or to the left, whatever you're more comfortable with. And again, you're just going to weave your needle into the stitches. Make sure you can't see it from the front or the back. And now that I've gone to the side, I'm going to go back up, and I'm making my way back around to where I started from. That will ensure that my yarn doesn't come out, my tails don't come out in use or in the wash, because you can wash these. And make sure to check the care label on your yarn to find out what your wash instructions are for the scrunchies that you make. So I'm just going back up now, and I'm going to go back around to where I started from. I'm just going to try to work as best as I can so the yarn doesn't come loose, the tail doesn't come loose. And that's it. My tails are hidden in there. I'm going to pull a little so that when I cut and I let go, the tail goes into the stitches. Cut. Make sure not to cut your stitches. And I'm just going to wiggle it, and my yarn will get hidden into the stitches. And that's it. As you're using it, you won't even see. It looks just like my stitches do. And that is your two-toned scrunchie. So I hope you enjoyed making these scrunchies and that you enjoy using them and gifting them. I hope this tutorial was fun and easy enough for you to follow. Do go ahead and check out those helpful links in the description box. Give this tutorial a like if you liked it, and do subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Subscriptions are free. It's just a way of bookmarking my channel so you can find it easier next time. I try to put out tutorials once a week, so I do hope to see you back here next week for another fun and beginner-friendly project. And thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.